Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about the One Piece Stampede movie. If you guys enjoyed today's video, hit that subscribe, of course, if you are new for more content. And that being said, the movie just came out locally for me, so I got the chance to watch the movie. And I wanted to go ahead and obviously kind of talk about it, fanboy over it, review some of it, and just discuss it, man. So I hope you guys enjoy, of course. Now, we are obviously going to have spoilers, so like if you haven't seen the movie, then maybe this isn't the video for you, right? So that being said, that's your only warning. Spoilers, once again. So yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the video here. Now, I'm not the best reviewer in any way. I don't ever really do reviews. I do one like maybe once every year and a half or 2 years ever. And I'm sure I could find a way to concise this more. If you're somebody that's not going to want to listen to what I have to say, or you're just simply not going to have the time, whatever the case is, understand this video is going to take a while. I'm going to go over everything that I think about. So I just appreciate it if you just don't watch a minute and just leave. If you don't have the time, save the video for later, right? Because it's not great for the channels if people do that. You click on, leave immediately after or whatever. So again, I'm not the best reviewer, but bear with me. There are little details that I might kind of like overlook that I don't think are really relevant to the story, but we'll talk about it here. Okay, so before we do that, I want to kind of actually just explain a little bit of my fandom for this series so you guys can understand where I'm coming from as far as my perspective of the show. Now, I have been caught up on the anime since the time skip a few years ago, however many years ago that was. At this point, I don't know. But I've been caught up on the anime since then. I used to read the manga a couple of years ago. I fell out of it. I would like to get back. I have not been reading recently, so yes, I am caught up with the anime. Also, since that's the case, I've also not gone ahead and rewatched a lot of anime for the series, of course. I've also not gone back and read a lot of the anime, so I'm going based off of recollection. I'm by no means a One Piece expert, right? I can only tell you what I remember off of 900 odd episodes. So there we go. So that's pretty much my history with the series. So now we're gonna actually get into it. So the first part, we start off actually with Festa having found Gold Roger's treasure. So there's a whole plot of let me just kind of explain the plot of the movie. Basically, and this is actually what I was able to piece together. I actually did miss the first few minutes of the movie because the line was really long at the concessions. But overall, though, the general plot of the movie is, okay, Festa is a new character. Festa, I'm assuming he's a new character. I don't remember him. Anyways, Festa did find Gold Roger's treasure. So that's the whole point of this, right? So he throws a party and basically has all of the other pirates that come, which is pretty much the Supernovas and some warlords like Buggy and just stuff like that. Notable characters, right? Pretty much this movie finds a way to tie in pretty much every single notable and relevant character in the series for the most part. But yeah, pretty much everybody shows up to try to get whatever this treasure is, but Festa is two-timing everybody. He has a couple of ulterior motives, one of which is he has invited the Navy to the party. Also on top of that, he has Douglas Bullet. He's in cahoots with Douglas Bullet. So Douglas Bullet is actually a character that was a part of Gold Roger's pirate crew. So that's the general premise of the beginning of the movie. And then from there, it turns into, oh, Douglas Bullet wants to be the strongest, and his motive is, hey, if I want to be the strongest, I need to start off by killing all of these guys, which is the Supernovas. And then from there, it turns into a full-out brawl, assault on Douglas Bullet, obviously. The Navy gets involved from there. They order a buster call, which is pretty much to nuke the entire island. And then from there, Luffy winds up beating him, and that's the end of the movie, right? So let's kind of talk about a little bit of what's in between. So back to the treasure. So like I said in the very beginning, Festa organizes an event. All of the pirates are trying to get this treasure. It's basically a race to see who can get it first. And lo and behold, wouldn't you know it, Buggy is the first one to appear with the treasure. He gets his hands on it. And then pretty much after that, this is what happens. So Buggy looks inside. They don't show us what's inside, right? They do not show us what is inside at all until the end portion of the movie, well, the latter half pretty much. And then afterwards, everybody comes after Buggy. Lo and behold, Usopp winds up with it. He looks inside. He gets demolished by Douglas Bullet. Douglas Bullet is just there holding him by the head, man. And he's just done, right? Usopp is done in typical Usopp fashion. So there we go. And again, they didn't show us what was inside of here, right? So Douglas Bullet from there does pick it up. Luffy gets pissed off because of the fact that obviously Usopp was beaten up, right? That definitely pissed off Luffy, and also he wanted the treasure anyway. But the main reason he got pissed off is he was like, yeah, you hurt my friend. Typical Luffy right there, and I can't blame him for that, right? So after that, what ultimately winds up happening is there's a whole other subplot going on where half of the, in between all this and before the Douglas, arrival and stuff with where he bodies Usopp, there's a whole subplot going on where they're trying to figure out what's going on the island, because there's, again, ulterior motives there with Festa. So Festa is kind of like underground in an underground bunker or whatever it is, man, in like a cave type of atmosphere. So half of the pirate crew, Sanji, Brooke, I believe it was Chopper, and Robin, all go ahead and split off from the regular group. The regular group does still pursue the treasure. The other group kind of goes incognito, because in between all of this, I need to backtrack a little bit. Law did show up, and basically he didn't request help. The Straw Hats kind of just threw themselves in there. But Law is beaten up, and he was telling everybody to evacuate the island, and they go ahead and investigate more. They find out that Festa is, again, in cahoots with the Navy. He has invited the Navy to the party, ultimately. So that's what they find out. And then they find out, oh, hey, a buster call is probably coming. And so that group tries to make their way, for the rest of the movie pretty much, until the latter portion of the movie. They try to make their way out of this bunker, back to the top, and one thing after another keeps on happening, and they're basically unable to do it until it doesn't matter. They tried to actually go ahead and warn everybody about this this plan that was going to happen, but they're never really able to do it. Ultimately, what winds up happening is on their way out, they run into Smoker. So Smoker was there too, incognito. He was dressed up a little differently and stuff. Again, I missed the first couple of minutes of the movie, so I didn't understand why him and Tashigi were in those outfits, but they were there. But Smoker did go off on his own at this point, and he runs into them, and he's like, what are you guys up to? He thinks they're up to something, and it comes out that, hey, yeah, Sanji actually fights him, which is pretty cool. Because, Smoker has the Sea Prism Stone Sword. So, obviously, it's funny. They actually play on that, too. They're like, man, hold on. Avoid it. He has Sea Prism Stone. And everybody's like, wait. He's like, well, no. They say that. And Smoker's like, well, can you blame me? It seems like every pirate I fight now has a devil fruit, which is really interesting, too. Because that's the truth, man. Out of nowhere, post-time skip, everybody has devil fruit. And also, requisitely, to help combat that, everybody has hockey now. So that's kind of what he says there, and it makes sense, right? So he does fight Sanji, who, as we know, does not have a devil fruit. He just has access to the hockey, right? So he does fight him, and obviously that works pretty well versus Logia types, because that was the main reason why that was even, I would say, introduced in the series, if I recall correctly, was because of Logia types and the inability to really damage them. So that being said, Smoker and Sanji fight for a bit. The rest of the crew does try to exit, and then afterwards, Law is pretty much just incapacitated throughout this part of the movie. He's not doing anything. But Crocodile does show up and basically requests Law's assistance, and Law disappears until the end portion of the movie, as does Crocodile. So then we cut back. Douglas Bullet is just beating everybody up. Like, the Supernovas are no match for this guy. His whole thing is, he wants to be the strongest, and he was apparently a prisoner in Impel Down. Again, I missed the opening portion. I assume the opening portion is where they actually broke him out of prison or somehow got him out of there. But he was a prisoner in Impel Down for about 24 years or so, I believe he said. And again, he was a part of Roger's crew. They did mention that he was pretty much the strongest guy next to Rayleigh, who was actually Roger's right-hand man. So, he's pretty freaking powerful. So, that being said, he's also honed his skills somehow in prison and throughout this time. I don't know if they broke him out 24 years ago and he's been in hiding or what, but he's honed his skills. He's gotten more powerful. So, he's, again, beating up the worst generation. They can't deal with this guy at all, right? They're pretty much all there. There are other side fights going on. Like, we have Bartolomeo. He's on the side. They're fighting the Navy. Sanji's fighting Fujitora. They're having that bout again. Just little stuff like that going on the side. But the main attraction, obviously, is Bullet. All the while, Festa is just watching all of this. And he does have, I forget the reporter guy and some other underworld guys kind of just watching this all pretty much live, right? And this all kind of takes place right after the Whole Cake Island stuff, it seems. And obviously before Wano. It seems like it takes place right in that period. But after Luffy escapes Whole Cake Island and his crew. And then all of that. Because the pirate is there. Man, I forget the reporter's name or whatever. But he's talking, oh, yeah, Luffy might actually be the 5th Yonko, stuff like that. And so that he obviously did actually put out that newspaper talking about that too anyway. And Luffy has the new bounty. So all of that, it takes place in that period, right? So all those guys are pretty much just spectating and watching. Now, at this point, we understand Bullet's, he actually was kind of holding back big time because he never broke out his devil fruit. Now, he has like a super crazy buffed version of Eustace's Kid Devil Fruit to me. Like, he's got the ability to not only pull in stuff around him, he's able to assimilate them and do anything that he wants, man. It's pretty freaking crazy. So he's bodying them, and at this point, the Navy is actually getting ready to do the Buster Call at this point. And again, that's just where they nuke the island, cannon fire, destroy everything. Apparently, a Buster Call was the only way they were able to take down Bullet last time he was around, and before they imprisoned him. So he's actually got a vendetta versus the Navy. He actually really wanted them to call the Buster Call anyway, so he can prove that he's stronger now, and he is, in fact, the strongest, and he will actually live through that Buster Call. And he says, literally, I am the strongest, and once I defeat you guys, the Supernovas, and once I handle the Navy, the 4 Emperors will be next, and all of this stuff. So he's out to prove it, and he wants to be the king of the pirates. And at this point, just about this point is where they finally show what actually was in the treasure. And this is about the midpoint of the movie. They finally show what's in the treasure after teasing it a few times. And it actually was a log pose, but not any log pose. It was one that would take you straight to Laugh Tale. And if you don't know what Laugh Tale is, that is the island where supposedly the One Piece is located. So he says to Luffy, hey, just so you know, having this treasure is basically the same thing as having the One Piece. And Luffy's like shocked, like, wait, the One Piece? Like, it's that big of a deal? So that is insane. There is a log pose that takes you straight to the One Piece. That is crazy, supposedly anyway, because we haven't been able to confirm, unless I missed something. There's been no confirmation that it 100% is there. But the thing about it is it's not nobody knows where Laugh Tale is anyway. That's why they have all of those I forget what those they're called, but the tablets, where Big Mom has one. They're all over the place, and I believe there's 4 in total, and they're supposed to take you directly to Laugh Tale. So it's a really big deal. So yeah. And he has this whole time. He has it the entire movie pretty much until the very end. So, again, the Buster Call was ordered. At this point, they go back to fighting Bullet. And Bullet has assimilated his awoken power of the Devil Fruit pretty much allowed him to assimilate the entire island. Not the entire island. But he was only able to really do, like, it seemed like machinery, which is why I emphasized Kid, because it's almost the same type of deal, but just, like, way better. But what wound up happening was he was able to suck in the Navy ships, which was a big deal because it pretty much effectively hamstrung their ability to get off of the island in some capacity anyway. There were still ships around. But, like, he was able to do that and all the residual, like, houses and everything there, right? And he just turns into what resembles one of those, I forget what they're called, man, like a titan. I think they're called Titans. But, like those huge, and I'm not so big with, like, the mythology of this, so that's why I also don't remember it. But if you've seen the animated Hercules movie from Disney back in the 90s, those, like, Titans, you know what I'm talking about, that show up at the later portion of the movie that were mad at Zeus, right? It resembles one of those. It's huge, it's insane, and he is just monstrous and terrifyingly big, and I have no idea how they're going to deal with this at this point. Personally, I'm like, man, what is this? I've never seen anything like this in One Piece. I haven't seen anything like this in a lot of shows. Like, this is like nuts, right? It's not just one super powerful guy a la Dragon Ball, right? But it's like nuts. This guy's huge. And he's just swatting them like ants and flies, and he's just taking care of all of them. So to me, I'm like, man, this is absurd. And then afterwards, Sabo shows up. Out of thin air, Sabo shows up. And at this point, I'm like, whoa, Sabo. Even though playing Bounty Rush, he's in the game, so you know he's going to be in the movie. And they definitely love marketing Sabo ever since they introduced him back in the series via the anime. Also, the manga, it happened way sooner there, but especially in the anime, he's been in a lot of merchandise ever since. So, yeah, like, Sabo shows up, and then Law finally shows back up. And Crocodile and Law basically just devised a plan where Law is going to create an opening and get rid of a part of because the entire Titan that Douglas Bullet created was basically made by, Well, it was covered in hockey, right? Armament hockey. So they basically needed to break into it, and that was what Law's role was. Also, Boa Hancock is here, and she's doing her typical Boa stuff, fanboying over Luffy, or fangirling, I guess. And, you know, that type of stuff, Boa stuff, right? And she also does create the opening. Her and Law basically make it to where Luffy is able to come in and just clean up at the end. So at that point, Luffy does get the log pose once he has defeated the enemy in Gear 4. And this is where it's really funny. Once he gets it, Rob Lucci, and Rob Lucci was actually in the movie. I forgot to mention this. Apparently, Cypher Pole is all there. Like, so this movie, okay, I've been trying to kind of push through the review. The movie basically, like I mentioned earlier, literally, and I mean quite literally, tries to throw in every single relevant character in the series. Like, they really try to. And I mean relevant by, like, important characters, or like characters that we have seen a lot, or like haven't seen for a very long time, or too much of lately. Now, at this point in the story, we had just seen Lucci again when it's supposed to take place chronologically, excuse me, because of the Reverie in the anime and stuff like that. So we know he's around again, but like he's there. So it's like, this is really cool. But everybody, Crocodile, all these guys are approaching Luffy to try to take the log pose from him, as you would expect, right? And this is what I envision happening when he gets the One Piece eventually, because we know Luffy will get it, right? Right? Maybe? Yeah, so everybody's approaching Luffy, and Luffy does the unspeakable. He destroys the log pose. And you would expect this anyway, because they've obviously got to keep the story going, unless they were going to say, oh, hey, well, I guess it wasn't here on Raftel the whole time. So yeah, and I don't think this movie's not canon, but it's just trying to make sense of it and explain where they're taking place in the timeline. It fits actually pretty well in the timeline, actually. Unlike a lot of other anime movies that kind of just take place in a one-off, seemingly like alternative universe, right? This actually could fit very well in the timeline, like I explained earlier. So yeah, that's pretty much everything. And then the crew goes back on their journey, and then at the end of the movie, post-credits, there is a little Gold Roger scene where he's like, "Wait, you created a log pose?" One of his allies did, and he's like, "We don't ever need to come back." Yada yada. He was like, he throws it in the ocean. He's like, "I wonder who will find the One Piece." And he actually talks about his son, and we know his son is actually Ace. And speaking of Ace, how could I forget? Let me rewind just a little bit. Before the movie is over, they're trying to escape the island after Luffy destroys the pose, but the Navy is still in the ocean. They're still there, right? I kind of skipped over some minor details, like they were in the sky, and then our ship goes flying up there, destroys. It doesn't really matter. That stuff is not really relevant. But the Navy's still there, right? So they're trying to escape. And Sabo, I don't know who that girl was that powered up his fruit, but his fruit got turned to the max, and he creates these firewalls, literally separating the Navy from all of the ships trying to flee the area. And in that instance, in the flames around him, we see an image of Ace. Ace is literally there back to back, full body, everything. Now, obviously, that's just a reference to Ace. Ace is not literally there, but that's Ace's power, right? So that was so awesome to see, man. It was so awesome that they found a way to include Ace in the movie, at least in spirit, quite literally. So yeah, that was so cool, man. And it was really cool seeing all the characters. One thing I've been asked is, like, what do I think about this movie in relation to Dragon Ball Super, which is Toei's previous animated movie, right? I don't think it's going to have the success of Dragon Ball Super, and I think that's mainly just because how mainstream Dragon Ball has gotten. Dragon Ball has overtaken One Piece as Toei's bread and butter anime series, and over the course of like the last year or so, I believe, and not annually, but historically, One Piece is still that. But at least lately, it's been Dragon Ball. Dragon Ball is their bread and butter, and Dragon Ball is so popular. The thing about One Piece is, it's mainly popular out in Japan, right? Outside of Japan, though, it's not anywhere near as successful or popular, but Dragon Ball overseas is incredibly popular. There's so much Dragon Ball all the time, everywhere, and we saw that with the movie. You know, the movie was supposed to have a very limited run initially, but it got extended in a lot of theaters over and over and over for a very long time, actually. And the run was extended, and that became basically a box office hit for an animated movie. Dragon Ball was so successful, I don't think that's going to happen here. Now, in the context of the actual movie content, one thing that I do really appreciate is, even though it felt like it was a bit much, where they're showing literally all these characters, I mean dozens of them that are important to the story, obviously we have a long-form story like this, there's a ton of relevant characters. Unlike Dragon Ball that kind of just focuses mainly on Goku and Vegeta, I really did appreciate that. I really, really appreciated the characters being in the series, and not in the series, but in the movie, in a big way, right? Even though it all comes down to Luffy at the end and his crew and stuff like that. And also, the ragtag team, I didn't really mention this so much, but it was Boa, and also in some capacity, Buggy, Locke, Crocodile, and also Smoker, and Sabo, and Luffy. Did I mention Boa? Yeah, they were the team that kind of took down everything at the end when I mentioned the plan. I appreciate that. So I would say I do think that it was probably a better movie because of that, and also because of the handling. It's quite linear and also quite literally the same concept as Broly on the surface. Bad guy shows up, bad guy super strong, we beat bad guy, end of story. Now there's other stuff in between, like Broly being a character that obviously is different from his previous edition. Also being a character that you can maybe understand and appreciate better with this backstory telling and stuff like that. But I do appreciate what they did here, and I liked how it fit and all that stuff. And it's not canon as far as I know anyway, but Dragon Ball Super Broly was, so little things like that do matter. But regardless, though, I don't know who I think. I guess maybe I think this is better, but recency bias is a thing, so I'm not equipped to make that decision or determination. But regardless, though, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion, review, etc. I'm not the best reviewer. I definitely could have maybe found a way to cut this down half the time. But yeah, thank you all, and I'll catch all of you in the next one.